Welcome to the McAllen Cable Network. I'm Roy Cantu for the City of McAllen, and with me today are very special guests who came into the valley to help our community out because of the recent rains. We have Robin Smith, who's with FEMA, and we have Corey Williams, who's with the SBA. And we're going to get into this information so you can provide to the citizens of what they need to do because of the recent flooding in South Texas. So Robin, let's start with you. What can residents do?
Well, at the moment, the Presidential Disaster Declaration consists of both Cameron and Hidalgo counties. So those who suffered flood damages in the recent rains can register for FEMA assistance by calling 1-800-621-3362 or going online to www.disasterassistance.gov.
Robin, what kind of information do they need when they call up? I mean, what is it that they need to know to be ready to go?
I would say have social security numbers of the key owners of the property. Also, if you happen to have an elderly relative perhaps that you are assisting, be aware of the fact that your name and your social security number need to be on that file as well, because we won't be able to talk to you later if your name is not on the file. So if you've got someone that you're helping, please be sure that they add your name to the file as well.
So for the process, it would be first contact FEMA, and then they'll ask you questions, or is there a questionnaire they can answer online?
Online, they're going to work your way through it. The same will be true of the 1-800 number.
Alrighty, and this is for all residents who experience some kind of damage in their property and their home.
Homeowners and renters. So if you are either, again, a renter or a homeowner, either one, and we tend to get a little confusion on that, so I want renters to understand they too can call and register for FEMA assistance. The assistance that will be provided potentially for them would be their contents.
Okay, and how is there a list they need to have ready? Do they have to go through their homes, pictures, anything?
What we ask people to do is I hope they've already started their cleanup process. And I hope they took a lot of pictures. And if they haven't started the processes yet, please do immediately, because it's too warm out there and we know that there will be mold and things like that growing. So the ideal situation would be if they took pictures of how high the water was, either inside and or outside their home, and made a list of the items that they threw out or that were damaged. Also, if you've replaced something already, keep a list of what those items were, but also keep the receipts for those items. And those are all things that either the FEMA inspector, in the case of the pictures, or FEMA themselves and or your insurance agent may need to assist if you actually have insurance.
Well, I just have a question. So people don't have to prove that their house flooded up waist high or knee deep, right?
Well, that's what the pictures will do, but we also, after they register, we will have an inspector come, and the inspector, that's the time to show the pictures, but also the inspectors have a tendency to be able to see where the damage was. Keep in mind that not only is it your walls, however, but the insulation that are behind them and the 2x4s or whatever the basis of the house is also would have got wet. So if you had damage on the walls and have cut the sheetrock out, be aware of the fact that you want to let those studs dry a little bit and cut out that insulation as well so you don't have it wick up farther into the house.
I know a lot of people are sort of impatient, but how long does the process take? Because they've been out of their homes or out of normal life for the last couple of weeks.
Well, in an ideal world, if we got everything that we needed, it would be very, very fast. The reality of the situation is, just like the inspections, just like the files for every single person, it's done on an individual basis. So with everyone's scenario being a little bit different, I can't give you a time frame for that. I can just say if you receive a letter from FEMA of any sort, whether it's confusing or you think you understand what it is, I would suggest anyone who receives a letter from FEMA take it down to the disaster recovery centers when we've got them open, and they should be open in the next couple of weeks. And that's the place to ask the questions, because those letters have a tendency to be very confusing. They're very official, governmental type letters, and we don't want anybody confused. And that's a place to sit down with someone and discuss it, and they'll be able to help with speeding it up.
And of course, there'll be English and Spanish speakers.
Absolutely.
Alrighty, well, thank you very much, Robin. Very honest answer right here, folks. So we'll give you the number again, but let's talk now to Corey, who's with SBA.
Yes.
Tell us how you're helping the community here in South Texas.
Well, we actually partner with Robin and FEMA, and whereas FEMA does the grants, we actually do low interest loans to businesses, homeowners, renters, and nonprofits. A lot of people have that misconception that because we're the U.S. Small Business Administration, all we can do is help out businesses. But in times of disaster, it's so important to remember that we can help out homeowners, renters, and nonprofits. So for our businesses, for instance, we can loan up to $2 million to repair or replace any kind of real estate, machinery, equipment, inventory that was damaged. That's the things that you can touch. But the most important aspect of our program is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. So, for instance, a lot of the business owners in the McAllen area may have had to shut down for 2 or 3 days. So let's say you have that restaurant owner who has revenue of $4,000 a day. Well, that 3-day period costs him, he or she $12,000. But the most important aspect, yes, that's the immediate loss that they have. But with the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, we have to forecast 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line, 9, 12 months down the line, because we know that we are a long-term recovery care partner. So it's important for us to make sure that we keep that small business sustained during this recovery period, because we have major, it seems like so many different disasters coming up with Hurricane Harvey last year, now with this flooding incident here. So it's different varying times as far as the recovery period. So it's very important to make sure that business sustains itself throughout this recovery period. Now, the business loan interest rates are as low as 3.61%, and it's a 5-month deferment on all of our loans. So that's one of the major differences in getting our loan, because these are your federal taxpayer dollars at work. So whenever you go to a traditional bank, you may end up, getting a loan, but you may start your payment the next month. But with our program, you actually won't probably start your first payment until January of 2019. So that gives that business owner the time to replenish their inventory, make sure all their real estate repairs are done, and then they can start the recovery process, the repayment process. Now, for homeowners can actually borrow up to $200,000 for the repair replacement of their real estate, and up to $40,000 for repair replacement of their personal property, which would include any automobiles. Now, the interest rates for homeowners is as low as 1.938%. Again, it's the same 5-month deferment, so we're not making the homeowner come in and start repayment immediately. We understand that it takes time to go ahead and make the repairs, buy the necessary personal property, replace that vehicle. I know a number of vehicles in McAllen were damaged, and then you start the repayment process. Same for renters. Renters can borrow up to $40,000 to repair, replace their personal property, which would include also their automobiles that were damaged as well. And with the interest rates as low as 1.938% and that 5-month deferment, it's so critical to be able to have that time before you start the repayment process. Another important aspect in how we partner with FEMA is the mitigation efforts. So with our loan, you can actually be approved for up to 20% of your total loss for any kind of mitigative measure. So we're already on the coastal bend, so in the Rio Grande Valley with high hurricane winds. So whenever you're rebuilding, you may want to rebuild stronger. Put that shutter on the window. Put that, instead of getting that 30-year roof, go ahead and get that 20-year roof. Or you may want to put a retaining wall. So these are things that are going to hopefully prevent future harm. And again, with the SBA loan funds, you can borrow up to 20% of your total loss for mitigative measures. So that's just kind of a brief overview of, the businesses, homeowners, renters program. And for nonprofits, nonprofits can also borrow up to $2 million at an interest rate of 2.5%.
Okay, Corey. Okay, Robin.
I was going to say there's one more part that we do together, and that is that many of the people who apply for FEMA assistance will actually receive a phone call from some of your colleagues from the SBA and or a loan package. And while FEMA funds are grants and SBA funds are low interest loans, one of the other aspects of our partnership is if you are turned down for an SBA loan, you may be referred back to FEMA for potentially some additional funds. So we really do work together when we come into a disaster.
And I heard you all earlier say that you should really call both numbers or contact both agencies because you really don't know what you can qualify for.
That's very true. And you know, the first thing which is most critical, as Robin alluded to, you want to make sure to register with FEMA first. So do those necessary channels on www.disasterassistance.gov or the 1-800-621-3362. And then now you actually can apply online with SBA. You can go to www.sba.gov/disaster, and you can actually apply online. So you don't have to wait until the Disaster Recovery Center actually opens next week to go ahead and put in the application. That's very critical to go ahead and get that process started before the Disaster Recovery Center is open.
Will both of y'all be at the disaster recovery, or is there an office for SBA?
I'm sorry, our agencies will, we specifically probably won't be.
Okay. Because
we'll be out speaking to the communities. The other thing that I wanted to mention, though, that kind of relates to that is the fact that with the SBA loan, you may not think that you need the loan right now, but if you toss away that application or you don't fill it out and you get, as the the weather gets warmer, and mold may potentially start growing that you didn't expect, or additional damages show up later when the contractor comes in and starts working on things. If you fill out the loan application and you do get approved, you don't have to take the money right now. You've just kind of developed a safety net for yourself. Because if you don't want it later, then you just let them know you no longer need the loan. But if you do find that you need it later, you've got it available because there's only a certain period of time for actually applying.
Yes, and the deadline actually to apply is September 4th, 2018. We cannot emphasize that enough for both FEMA and SBA. That is September 4th, 2018 that you have the deadline to apply. So it's so critical to make sure to put in your application in a timely fashion. One thing I also want to mention is that we have a business recovery center that's going to be opening in Weslaco this Thursday at 8 a.m. Now, that's going to be a little bit different from a disaster recovery center. So I'm going to let Robin go ahead and explain the disaster recovery center, and then I'll come back and kind of explain further on the business recovery center.
Okay, Robin.
The disaster recovery centers are essentially the place where people can come in, sit down with all of our staff and many of the other agencies that the state of Texas has brought in to assist. The state of Texas is wonderful when it comes to having other needs assistance, things like perhaps UMCOR or legal aid, many other agencies or nonprofits that whether you can get FEMA or SBA assistance or not, there's some other options out there for you. So that's the place where people would come in and get their questions answered or let us know of some unmet needs.
Well, let me ask you, would FEMA or SBA ever call me to my house and say, give me your credit card so I can start your application process? Because there's a lot of predators that come out with, especially and hit the people in need.
Thank you so much for asking that question. The answer is none of us charge anything for any of our help. So if you have someone who shows up and says they're an inspector and for $200 we'll be glad to get started, please take a picture of that license plate and call your local officials, because we do not ever charge for any services that FEMA provides.
Awesome.
And same here. There's no cost for anything that the SBA provides. These are your federal government taxpayer dollars at work. So just like Robin alluded to, call your local authorities immediately anytime you come across that situation. But I did want to add one other part about that Business Recovery Center, because there is, always that confusion. The Business Recovery Center is for any of the businesses that are in Hidalgo or Cameron counties that were affected. So it's kind of that resource so they can kind of skip that line as far as, usually disaster recovery centers sometimes have longer lines, and we know that small businesses, have to take time off from their, from their business to be able to come in and apply. So our Business Recovery Center in Weslaco is more to cater to those businesses during that time period, because we know that their time is of the essence. So that's the main delineation that I would like to convey, is that, we want to make sure our businesses are coming to our Business Recovery Center and getting that extra jump start on the recovery and application process.
Well, on behalf of all the residents who were hard hit, well, welcome to McAllen, because they've been waiting. And so I know they're going to be excited about this information of meeting with y'all, making sure they apply, making sure they get their information out. And of course, we will continue to provide the information. Thank you very much, Robin Smith. If you want to give us the phone number again, they can contact FEMA.
1-800-621-3362 or www.disasterassistance.gov.
And Corey?
And SBA customer service is 1-800-659-2955. And our website is www.sba.gov/disaster.
Well, thank you very much. And hopefully all the residents do what they're supposed to do before September 4th of this year.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much. Welcome to the City of McAllen. For the City of McAllen, I'm Roy Cantu with our very special guest.